Hello and welcome to this next step of the tutorial in which we will be making some fabric simulations and cushions for our sofa. And the sofa is this piece, and this is where you should be up to about now. And now we'll be using force fields and a cushion shape to simulate what we want to do. And basically you'll just use this force field and let this fall onto the object that you want, and then stop it at just the right time and save that as your model. So how to make this thing? Firstly, let's just go into looker mode, and I'm going to make one here. So just add a cube, scale it down, and make it flat, something like this. And then I want to go into edit mode and go face select and select these two faces. And go into edit mode and then make a bunch of cuts like this, and another one like this, and go into edit mode and add a cut here and a cut here, and then grab these and press S and then Shift Z to scale them on the Z axis just a little bit, and then add a bunch more cuts now like this. Okay, next step, let's just actually scale it a bit, make it a bit thicker, and add a cut here, and then scale this cut on the x-axis a bit like this, and then do oops-a-daisy, grab that edge and do mark seam, and then you can select everything and just unwrap it quickly, and then that's kind of done. We can go back and update that a bit later, but that's fine. Next thing you want to do is just grab this face, grab the normal, Control minus, and move that on the z-axis. It doesn't need to be perfect, just make it look a bit thicker, a bit cushiony, and then the fabric simulation will finish this off later. So let's do the same again. Grab this face, Shift G normal, Control minus. There's probably a quicker way than that, but that's fine. So we have this shape, and right click and just shade smooth. Right, so we have the shape, and that's kind of what we want to work with. Actually, let's scale this off a bit more. And in this one, I've actually made the corners a bit softer. You don't really need to, but if you want to, you can just grab these vertices here and just scale them in like this. Okay, the next thing I want to do is go to so click on here and go to here and click on cloth. And actually I'm going to add a subdivision surface first, just like this, and set the quality down to 1 because it doesn't need to be high for this, and then click on this button, and now we're going to add these settings for the cloth. This is just, you can add whatever you want, but this is kind of the settings that I found worked best for me, but this does require quite a bit of experimentation for your particular model, and yeah, this is kind of what I got. So 2, and yeah, 0.5, and then we want to go down to collisions and make sure that we have self collisions turned on, and I'm just going to set the friction to 1 and the damping to 0.01, sorry, and also set it here 0.001. okay, and then I'm going to turn the gravity all the way down to about 0.13. Okay, next thing I want to do is make sure that I have this object selected and do Shift S and cursor to selected, and then add a force field. Add a force. Okay, and I want to set the strength to 500 and noise amount, I don't know, to 10. It doesn't really matter right now. And yeah, I think we're ready to do simulation. So let me remove this one and remove this one. Next thing you want to do is actually click on the object you want to collide with, and make sure you click on physics and click on collision. Okay, and also what you want to do is turn off the subdivision for this, because that will slow down the simulation quite a lot. So just for both of these, I'm going to add I'm adding the collision to both, and make sure, yeah, subdivision is turned off. So now grab these and move these over to about where you want it to go, and something like this. And then it's just a case of experimenting and playing. So just going to hit play and see what happens. Okay, something weird is going on here, so let me just have a look. Looks like we might have some duplicated vertices. So I'm going to go to Mesh, Clean Up, Merge by Distance. Okay, I think that's I don't know what happened there, but there we go. So now I want to press play again. Okay, now it's simulating how we want. So if you want the cushion to be more full, you can increase this, the strength of the force, and that will explode it a bit thicker like this. Or if you want the cushion to keep its shape, then lower this. So I'm going to do maybe 100, and then that will fall straight down and it won't be so full. But we want kind of in between, so I found that 500 or maybe 400 should do fine for here. Okay, something like here. Alright, that's a bit too much. Okay, I'm actually going to move this over a little bit. Maybe something like this. Okay, and I think that should be fine for now. What I'm going to do is duplicate this over to here, click on this one, and then I'm going to go to here and apply the subdivision and apply the cloth. Now if we move this object over to make sure that it is actually touching the sides, because when you simulate the fabric in Blender, it always has quite a big distance between the objects, even though I've set it to 0.001. Unless I've missed something, then please tell me. But basically, yeah, move this over to where you want. If the edges are way too crazy for you, then what you can do is just go to Sculpt and just go over it and just shift click to smooth it out a little bit. Okay, I think that's fine for now. And you can also add a subdivision surface if you want to smooth it out even further, but then the polys will start adding up, but I don't think that matters for this point. Okay, so yeah, I might as well leave that on. Let's come out of here and then let's do the next one. So let's go back into object mode, select this one, and I go back to the beginning. There we go. I think I might have just made some keyframes. Oh, it looks like I had auto keyframe turned on, so I'm just going to remove these keyframes that I just created. Okay. Then let's move this over somewhere that we want it to start simulating. Okay, also we need to add a collision to this cushion so that they both collide with each other. Okay, and then let's play again. So I want this cushion to be a bit more full than it is, and a bit more fluffier. It's falling almost straight down here without doing anything. So let's actually bring this one in. Sorry, it's a bit fiddly, this one. So I'm going to increase the fluffiness of this, maybe 650. There we go. And let's see how that's doing on the bottom. Okay, I think that's fine for now. Let's duplicate this one again over to here, and let's click on this one and apply the subdivision again and the cloth, and then we can just remove these. Okay, let's click on this one and go back to the beginning frame. I'm going to move this one over actually, something like this, and bring it down. Okay, if it's overlapping we can fix that a bit later, but we just want to move it into place. All that we're really trying to do right now is just try to give it the realistic fabric creases. Okay, that's fine. Actually, for this one, I think I'm going to move this one right out of the way, just so that we can make this one fall into the corner quite nicely. So let's bring this down like this, and then let's try this one. Okay, let's increase this a bit more. And I'm actually going to try and bring this over. I want it to kind of fall over the edge a bit, so let's try this again. Okay, that's looking quite nice. Okie dokie. And then what I want to do now is let's actually duplicate this one just over here, and then apply this one. Okay, and then we move this one into place, and then we add the seams. Okay, let's just copy the material from this object, so Control L and copy material, and then we go in, oops, click on these objects here, first thing I want to do is try to smooth out these edges, because that will mess things up. So go to Sculpt and just smooth these out a bit with Shift S. Okay, now I'll go back to object mode. Make sure you apply the scale, so Control A to apply the scale, then do Control B and make a edge like this. Okay, then do Control minus and do Alt S to bring this edge in quite a lot. Then you Control minus and press O to turn on proportional editing and make sure you've got it set to this one, and then do Alt S again. You just want to make this middle bit come out quite a bit like this, then do Alt S again, but then increase the width like this. So now you have a nice seam that is tucked in. Okay, let's just apply the scale for now and select all and do unwrap. I'm just going to go back to Eevee. There we go, now we have some cushions with some seams. Okay, and we have, you can see how it's looking now, so this edge, this cushion needs to come over actually, just a bit, so it's nice and falling over, and this one needs to come in to something like this. Okay, and this one I think I'll bring over a little bit here. Let's bring it right over. Just come back out of Eevee, it's slowing it down. Okay. Again, let's bring this one over. Okay, there we go. So let's go back into Eevee. Let's just see how this is looking, and press this button to turn off everything. And I think this is looking pretty nice. If we go into cycles, I think it will look a bit better. And obviously we don't have subdivision turned on these, so this looks a bit funny. But for now, yeah, I think that's looking pretty cool. So now we want to add some round cushions. So what we're going to do is add a mesh and a cylinder. And let's try to create it about the size that we want. Maybe something like this. Okay, and then we want to go into local mode and we want to select both faces and do mark seam. And then we want to add another seam here. Okay, then we want to delete both of the edges, both of the ends, sorry, and select the edge and do grid fill and do another one here, grid fill. Okay, now what we want to do is come out of here and give this one another one, a cloth. And I want to do these settings, so what I want to do is set this to 150, 0.5, 50, and 2, and this can be quite fiddly, so you might need to change these settings again yourself, but this should be fine. So I want to set this to 0.001, 0.001, and might as well set the quality a bit higher, and also push this all the way down to something like this. Okay, then do Shift S cursor to select it, and now we add a force, set this to 1000, maybe add some noise, and let's see how this goes. Okay, we want to add a subdivision surface first. Okay, I just remembered I actually need to add some loop cuts, so let's add some cuts here. Okay, and then let's try this again. Okay, and stop it about here. Let's add some smooth shading, and I think that should be fine for now. Let's duplicate this one over, so Shift D over here. And then let's apply this one, and let's bring this down, something like this. Just remove this one, and then we want to do the same for this one. So let's bring this over, maybe make it overlapping just a little bit, and just press play. Okay, I think that was falling just a bit too far, so let's bring this down a bit. and stop this here. Okay, and then we want to apply this again. And we could just remove this one, so let's bring this one down as well. Okay, then let's grab both of these and go into edit mode and grab the seams and press Shift G and seam, and we'll grab all of the seams. Okay, then do Control B, and then make sure you've got 5 loop cuts in the middle, then do Control minus and do Alt S. Okay, then do Control minus, and turn on proportional editing and do Alt S again, but just a really small area, just to bring this centerpiece out just a little bit, and then do Alt S again, but move the mouse wheel out a bit so you increase this piece. Okay, something like that. Okay, now we have something that looks a bit like seams. There is a little corner thing going on here, so let's add a let's smooth these out a little bit, but this piece is actually going a bit funny, so press add proportional editing and we could just edit this just slightly, and what you can do is just bring this to wherever you want to make it less square. Okay, and same here. Okay, you can go around to all the corners and fix them up, but now we have something that looks like a round cushions. You can do Control M, add material, and now we have lots of cushions. So there are some overlapping things, so one thing you can do is go into edit mode and click on an edge and do O and just move this over, something like this. Okay, and same for this piece here. Okay, it doesn't matter if fabric overlaps just a little bit, because that makes it look like they're getting, you know, folding inwards. Okay, now let's turn the subdivision back on for these. Okay, and now I actually think that this piece can actually come out a bit more, and maybe select the middle row. And do you want make this look a bit thicker? There we go. And actually, I think I'm going to grab this edge and bring this down a bit. So let's go into wireframe. Just grab this edge, and with proportional editing turned on, let's bring this just down a bit. And maybe grab this edge and bring this up just a bit like this. Now this is looking a bit softer around the edge there, so let's go into, I notice this is going a bit funny, let's go into Eevee. Okay, there's no unwrapping on this again, so let's just select the whole thing and unwrap it again. Okay, and same for this one. Okay, and this centerpiece here has its own UV, so what you can do is face select and do Control L, and then you can go to the UV image editor. Okay, that's not worked, so let's actually go into wireframe and deselect all of this. As this is actually under the model, it doesn't really matter, so we can just deselect all of this, and now we can unwrap these ones again. There we go, so that's better. So let's go into rendered, and they're a bit too big, so we can scale these down so they match. Okay. Yeah, so now let's add the legs. Do Shift S and cursor to selected, and then what I want to do is add a cube. Now I'm going to scale this cube right down in edit mode, and bring this over here. I'm going to turn off proportional editing again. And then what I want to do is add a mirror. So mirror and mirror, and go to the bottom view by doing Control M and bring this over. Let's go back into object mode and move this so it's centered. Okay. Then what I want to do is scale this in. And essentially make a shape a bit like this. And scale this one in. Let's bring this edge over and then bring this edge over. Okay, and maybe bring this down a bit more. Cool. Now let's press I on here and make sure you've got clipping turned on and press E to extrude. Let's just remove this this face and then grab the edge and bring that over, and then let's do the same for this piece. Something like this. E and delete the face and move that over. Okay, then let's just add a bevel. Apply the scale. Make sure you set it to angle, and yeah, I think that's pretty cool for some legs. Let's add the UVs, the seams. So let's just turn this off for now and click this seam, click this one, and this edge here, and this. Oops. Okay, this top piece, and then maybe this piece running down here. Let's see how this looks. Okay, I think that's fine. Let's turn back on the bevel and go back to the iMeshh Asset Manager and go to Materials and go to Default Materials, and let's just give it a quick material. So maybe clear coat plastic. Prop material. And let's see how this looks. Okay. This face is looking a bit funny. Oh, okay, I need to add one more seam going along this edge here and this edge. Okay, that's better. So what clear coat does is basically, if you look at it at a high angle, it is more reflective. And okay. Now let's add a plane on the bottom. So shift right click and add a plane and move this over. Oh, and I just realized we need to add the buttons. So I'm going to press into camera mode, click on the camera and do view, navigation, walk navigation, and just use the WASD keys to move it into where I want. And what I like to do is set the camera settings to focal length 80 and then go back. I really miss the shortcut key of Shift F, but never mind. Navigation, walk. Okay. There we go. Let's just see how this looks, and then we'll add on some buttons quickly. Okay, that's looking pretty nice. Next thing I want to do is just add some buttons, which are really quick. So what I'm going to do is just add a UV sphere and scale it in, scale it down, scale it in, and add it to something like this. And click on this one and copy the material, and right click and click smooth shading. And then all you need to do is just go to edit mode and just copy this over like this, and yeah, there we go. Then we have some buttons. So if we go into rendered mode, yeah, maybe we can make the buttons a bit smaller, but I think that that is looking pretty nice. The one thing I find most difficult is usually the seams along the edge, but this is a quick way to add some seams. The edge is a bit jaggedy there, so let's just add another subsurface there. And this is now a really smart seam. Okay, another step that you could take if you want to add some more creases is to add some creases by using a brush, and that's something you could do to the cushion. So if you go to sculpt mode, and then go to textures and go to brushes, and you load in a brush, and it's called a creasing brush, and there's many stores online. If you just search for something like that, you'll find something with this kind of creases. And then once you've loaded that into the brush texture, go to here and draw, and just go over the object and just click, and there we go. There's like instant creases. So let's do the same for this one. Let's go to object, click this object, go to sculpt, and maybe from a different angle. Okay, and then go to this one. Okay, and finally we can do the same obviously to these pieces here. Let's turn down the strength a bit for this one. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, and then this one. Cool. And you can actually do this to all objects, so if you want to do the same to this object. The problem with this brush technique is that you often need quite a lot of vertices and polygons to make it really convincing, but it's really good to add a little bit more variation to your object, so do it like here. And just one quick point is that if we go into Eevee and go into rendered mode, some of these edges might not be correct because we added the subdivision surface after we applied the UV. So what you want to do is apply the mirror and apply the subdivision surface, and then go into edit mode and select everything, and then unwrap again, and then that should fix any errors in the UVs that might be created. And let's actually apply this. Okay, cool. Okay, and this is one final step which I have taken. I've just copied this one and made it a bit smaller and moved it over here, and copied this one and made it a bit smaller and moved it over here, and now this is looking like a really full cushion. And what you can do is add different materials to these ones. And for my lighting setup, I've just created an infinity plane here, which is just a really basic 1, 2, 3, 4 with a subdivision surface, and also I'm shining quite a powerful light on the back there just to give it a glow, and added 2 lights to the side. I've also got HDR turned on, which is quite low. That's just adding kind of some background noise, but yeah, so this is kind of the finished piece which you would have seen at the very beginning of the video. And so yeah, that's kind of it.